Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. My name is Adi and today we are doing our week 3 NPA recap. Now if you missed week 1, basically what I did was I went through the NPA matches for the week and went and watched some of the more interesting matches that I thought and analyzed the replays. And of course I did want to do this every week. I actually recorded one for week 2, but I didn't think it was a very good video. Like, the matches were kind of hacksy or just not very well played, and I didn't feel like I added very much through my commentary, so I kind of just didn't feel like uploading it. It didn't feel like editing it. But week 2, the Puppies did beat the Samurais, a very, very good team. And I personally won my match as well. I played King of Mars, Gavin Michaels, and managed to beat him. And the Puppies in week 3 managed to beat the Symbionts, another good team. So we have been on fire. We are first place in the league at 3-0. I did not personally win my match. I played Jae-Sok Lee, who got second place in Players Cup 1, a phenomenal player. He got a little lucky game 1, and then he just read me like a book game 2. I just had no shot. And so just phenomenally well played. But the rest of my team did manage to win enough games to pull out the W for the team, and we are 3-0. We are in first place. And so I guess let's go over some of the week 3 games. Also, week 4 is underway. If you're interested in watching week 4 of the Puppies versus the Brave-Birds, the schedule is up here. And we will be going over the first match, the MiJa versus Zelda match, because that's already happened, and that one was a really good match. It was suggested to me, and I decided I should go over that too, because next week I will be going to Salt Lake City, and I won't have time to record in the lead up to that, so we will have to wait till week 5 otherwise, and I do want to highlight this match. So, week 3, the first result was the Brave-Birds versus the Stargazers, and the Stargazers have had a rough time of it. I believe that they are 0-3 right now. Here are the overall standings, and yeah, they are not doing too hot. They had a weird draft. First off, I think they have new managers, and they didn't really spend a lot of money early in the draft, other than on Bingjie, who they really wanted, and Bingjie is definitely pulled his weight. But then I think towards the end of the draft, they realized they had a lot of money and not enough players, and we're just trying to figure out ways to kind of fill out their roster with quality players, and maybe overpaid for some talent, but definitely they definitely have the potential. Just it hasn't translated with some close losses. But I do want to watch the Bingjie versus Paul Chua match, because both these guys are just phenomenal players, like top 8 in North America easily, in my opinion. And the team that I think has been the flavor of the week in week 3 was Ice Rider. Ice Rider has been making a huge resurgence in popularity. The Ice Rider Palkia team, which we showcased in week 1, has been all over the ladder this week. I think people are prepping it for the IC, because I've seen a ton of it, different variants of it too. But I want to showcase Bingjie's Ice Rider Dialga team, because it's a little different take on it. And I also want to showcase Paul Chua, who is, again, another really, really good player, and using the Kingdra team. And if you watched my video of my entire run through the Victory Road tournament, you noticed I played a Kingdra team. I thought Kingdra was surprisingly good, so I do really want to see it in action. And let's jump into the match. Alright, so hopping right into it, Bingjie is Yami Yuki, he's on the close side, and then Paul is Pony Person, he's on the far side. And we do see right off the bat, Paul is leading Kyogre in Incineroar, so really safe lead. He doesn't actually have that much speed control on this team like a Tornadus, like you would normally see at Kyogre. I guess that's the role of the Kingdra. It normally has like Icy Wind, for example, and as well as Max Airstream. And then the Dialga Rillaboom lead coming out, so obviously these Pokemon put a ton of pressure on Kyogre. Dialga is generally one of the better matchups for Kyogre, but on the other hand, Ice Rider is Kyogre is a good matchup for Dialga, but it is a bad matchup for Ice Rider, generally speaking. And so that kind of makes sense why they're paired together. And I guess we are going to see more of a Dialga focus for this game, because obviously this is a Kyogre team. But yeah, I mean, just off the bat, we just see the Intimidate come out from the Incineroar, so that's going to immediately put pressure on. Also, so one thing about Dialga, it can be pressure or it can be telepathy, right? And this team does not have a ton of ways to hit itself, so telepathy doesn't make a ton of sense, whereas pressure reveals your speed and also your opponent's speed a lot of times. And we do see his pressure here, and so we see these speed tiers here, which is really convenient. So we see the Kyogre going first. The Kyogre very likely to be max speed timid, so that it outspeeds a Zacian or a Calyrex at +1, and then when they're at -1. Dialga being a little slower, but still faster than the Rillaboom, so it's probably not min speed. And then the Incineroar going last. So pretty normal speed tiers, but still worth noting. And we see the Incineroar immediately switch out and the Kyogre protect. So pretty safe plays. The Rillaboom probably wasn't clicking Fake Out that turn, unless because like if you're clicking Fake Out into Incineroar, you're not actually getting that much out of it. But Protect is a really interesting play. Like if you're clicking Fake Out into Incineroar while you're playing on maxing your Dialga, you are stopping the Incineroar from like parting shotting, which is okay, right? You do want to click Max Quake that turn, but also it's not stopping a Fake Out, and you probably get more value out of like Grassy Gliding or U-turning, and repositioning a little bit, especially since you're at -1. So Protect really safe, playing around the Incineroar's potential Fake Out, Incineroar's potential parting shot, although I would imagine that goes into Dialga, and then also an attack from Kyogre, which honestly you don't really want to take that much. Kyogre maxing is also like, very reasonable on Paul's side of the field, so it makes sense that Protect. I don't know if it's the best play, but it is certainly a very valid play. Whereas the Rillaboom comes in on Paul's side, probably expecting a Max Quake. That is just boosting your special defense so that Kyogre does less damage, and doing a lot of damage to Incineroar, although a lot of Incineroar nowadays are Shaka Berry, so it might not be the safest play. Max Wormwind is also a possibility, but that's like, I guess you're never switching in Zacian there, right? Because you don't want to get Max Quaked on your Zacian. So Rillaboom taking that pretty safely. Overall, both players just making really conservative plays. Also worth noting, Rillaboom on Bingjie's side, not Assault Vest, and we don't know on Paul's side, but just Dialga Life Orb, pretty standard there. We just see the Fake Out into the Rillaboom, just wanting to make sure that the Grassy Glide doesn't come out, and we do see a Wormwind to reduce the attack stat, so now the Rillaboom is at -2 after the Incineroar comes in. I don't know if he expected the Kyogre to switch out, or if he just said he didn't need the Incineroar anymore because he was in a good enough position. But yeah, I think he expected the Rillaboom to die. I don't know, maybe not. This is good damage, right? But you're already a +1 Spadef. Do you want to damage Kyogre? I feel like maybe you ignore the Kyogre. Maybe it's pretty reasonable just to say the Kyogre isn't doing enough into Dialga, and you just get to ignore it. But Water Spots are doing a lot. Like getting some chip into it is pretty reasonable if you're not KOing the Rillaboom because you presumably have an Ice Rider in back. If it's a Thundurus in back, then, and we also don't know which Thundurus it is. It's probably physical because there's a Grimmsnarl on the team, and you would expect there not to be 2 Prankstermons on the team. But it's like a pretty decent. But like also, Ice Rider kind of wants to max. Dialga definitely wants to max, and then you have a third Dynamax Pokemon. A little questionable. Really hard to predict there. But I don't know. It's hard to know which one is going to be on this side of type of team. But if it is a Dialga in back, which is weird if it's physical, then that also is a pretty good, reasonable way to deal with the Kyogre. But so Rillaboom comes back in, just immediately pressuring this Kyogre. I guess we're going to see a U-turn out of this Rillaboom. But Max Quake coming out. Nothing really wants to take the Max Quake. So this is just a really safe play that's basically pinning that slot from Bingjie. But also, you're spending your last turn doing something, right? Max Quake is valuable, especially on Rillaboom, so it's taking a little less damage from this Kyogre. But Incineroar is going to come in. Incineroar is going to immediately put it at -1, throw that and Fake Out. Dialga probably can't KO Incineroar with a Earth Power that's not Max Quake, so it's threatening a parting shot. So yeah, let's see what happens. So Paul has at this point stalled out Bingjie's max, right? Only lost 1 Pokemon. Basically, like, there is a set up Dialga, but like it's not that set up. The Zacian is still going to power through if it has Sacred Sword. So let's see what happens. So Kyogre coming out, just not wanting to take that Grassy Glide, and you did need to get that Intimidate off. But because of these speed interactions, because Kyogre is faster, the Calyrex is not going to be intimidated. So very reasonable play also on Bingjie's part, getting that Dialga out of there, just playing around a potential Sacred Sword. And I think that most Dialgas are running 3 attacks in Trick Room, so they wouldn't have an opportunity to protect in that position. And I guess we're seeing a high horsepower. Oh, interesting. So we know it's probably Miracle Seed, Grassy Glide, high horsepower. And then I imagine Woodhammer as the last. So no U-turn, which explains why we haven't seen it come out. When there were a couple turns where I think you would U-turn. But yeah, decent damage. But this looks like it's pretty safely in Paul's favor, right? There's just so much pressure coming out. Oh, but Berry. Okay. Yeah, okay. Oh, whoa, okay. So that play was a lot, right? So there was a double up into the Calyrex. Even with the Berry, you'd expect Behemoth Blade Dark Solari to KO, and just didn't. It must be like somewhat physically bulky. I don't know my Calyrex calcs off the top of my head, but that's very that's really good for Bingjie. That was kind of what he needed to get back in the game because without this Calyrex, I don't think he had the damage output to win. But now, even if he switches it out or if he protects, like he still just has the maybe has the damage. But let's see, yeah. Oh, right, I forgot. So this is a I did hear about this. This was a Iron Defense Body Press Calyrex. Yeah. So that explains why it's so physically bulky, why it lived the attack. But yeah, I don't think you have the setup turns here. Calyrex going down, the Incineroar taking that pretty well. It is slower than Dialga, as we knew from the earlier game. Rillaboom not doing a ton here. And I imagine the combination of Max Flare and Sacred Sword is going to pick up the KO. Yeah, so he did have to Earth Power there, I guess, just to protect it, but Dialga going down to the Life Orb recoil. And then, it's a little awkward, right? Like, Incineroar has to click Max Flare to turn off the, or maybe doesn't have to click Max Flare. So I was thinking you click Max Flare to turn off the rain, but that makes Kyogre a lot worse, and I assume this is Max Lightning, or Electric move and not Ice move, because, well, I guess it could be Ice move. I guess this is a reasonable play to make if you're Ice move. I don't know. I mean, is there a reason why it wasn't Max Flare? Because that KOs, yeah. So why wouldn't you just Flare Blitz? Do you not? You have Flare Blitz. I'm so confused. What happened? What? I mean, what? How did that? I'm sorry. Okay, go back to this turn. This turn. Not this turn. This turn we know what happens. Okay, so here, Kyogre protects. Just it goes down to Grassy Glide. Otherwise, why is it not just Max Flare? If you Max Flare, then the Rillaboom is forced to high horsepower next turn. If you have Ice Beam, you certainly win. If you don't have Ice Beam, then you get to attack with Kyogre, right? So this is turn 4 of Grassy Terrain. Next turn will be 3 turns of Grassy Terrain left when you Ice Beam. Then you protect, and there's 2. At least you give yourself double protect odds if you don't have Ice Beam. But you also just get a Max Flare plus a Water Spout off. And granted, it's a Water Spout in Sun, but it's still a Water Spout, right? I'm calling this a throw. I feel like there's no world in which Max Darkness is correct there. Especially since he ended up living the high horsepower too. This was assuming that he went down to the high horsepower. He lived the high horsepower. Also, oh no, he did have to go Parting Shot to live the high horsepower. Right, that's fair. Yeah, I disagree with the play that Paul made. He was in very good position, and then I feel like he punted that on turn 8. I mean, it has to be just non ice move ogre, but even then, is a Max Flare into Water Spout KOing? Hold up. Actually, one more thing. So, on this turn, right? On this turn, if you Max Flared, the Incineroar is still there. It's not in Grassy Glide range, I assume. This turn, the Rillaboom has to protect, right? Because otherwise it goes down to a Flare Blitz. We know the Incineroar is slower than the Rillaboom because we saw that on turn 1 of the game, right? So this turn, the Rillaboom has to protect. Then the next turn, you go for Water, and this is third turn of Grassy Terrain, right? Then you go to 2 turns of Grassy Terrain left. The Kyogre clicks Water Spout, the Incineroar clicks Max Flare, right? You have to KO the Incineroar because otherwise you lose. And there's 1 turn of Grassy Terrain. You protect the Kyogre. Then there's no turns left, and the Grassy Terrain is gone. The Rillaboom no longer KOs this Kyogre. So that was a 100% win. There's no way to lose the game if you click Max Flare there, provided you make the right plays.
Okay, so future Audi here, I realized there is one more line that Bingjie could have done, which is high horsepower the Incineroar, put it in Grassy Glide range, and then I'm assuming that it dies to a Grassy Glide after a couple turns of recovery, and then threaten to Grassy Glide the Incineroar, actually Grassy Glide the Kyogre first because Max Darkness would put it at -1, and then Grassy Glide the Incineroar, or if you Max Flare, then you just Grassy Glide the Incineroar immediately, and then KO the Kyogre, provided that the Kyogre does not get a double protect as I saw at Grassy Terrain. That being said, like I said, the Max Darkness Protect line does not beat that play either. So if you are making a play to call out the high horsepower into Incineroar, you cannot make the max darkness protect play because that doesn't win in either scenario. There are two possible plays that Bingjie makes, and the play that Paul made loses to both of them. You are allowed to make a play that isn't exactly max flare protect, but if you are doing that, you are specifically calling out one play that Bingjie could make, which is high horsepower Incineroar into Grassy Glide, either Kyogre or Incineroar. And in that situation, if you are making that call out, you have to make a play that actually wins if your opponent does the play that you expect them to make. So that's my little addendum. Back to the pre-recorded video.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So yeah. Okay. That happens. So moving on to game 2, we are going to see Rillaboom, same leads on both sides. No speed ties, same ordering. Rillaboom comes in, so same turn 1, except the Kyogre does not opt to protect. Instead, just going for the Origin Pulse. Just saying, Kyogre not going to get a ton of value this game, which is pretty reasonable. It didn't really do much last game. It was at full health and just died. So by intimidating the Rillaboom, at least you get an attack off, but and it's not AV, so you are going to be doing a decent chunk to this Rillaboom. Chipping it down might be really important for Paul's game plan. But the Dialga and the Protect obviously stopping that. The Dialga going for a Max Quake, just like last time, making that really safe play. So the thing is, if you go for the safe play there, that's kind of you saying, I liked how game 1 went. I don't like how game 1 went for Bingjie. Game 1 was, he stalled out your Max. You lived on 1 HP to set up Trick Room, which gave you a shot at winning the game, and then he also had to throw for you to win the game. That is not a sustainable game plan, and by giving your opponent the exact same play, you are putting yourself in a position to lose. That being said, I feel like this happens to me a lot at tournaments where I lose a game because I got unlucky or threw or both, and I'm my opponent will never make the same play again. They understand that they would have lost that game if I had played slightly better or they had gotten less lucky. And then they make the same play and I lose because I made that aggressive read. So kind of fair, but also these are two of the better players in North America. You would expect them to not. I don't know. But this turn, okay, so Kyogre getting really good damage off with the fake out Water Spout. Fair play. The Rillaboom did crit, but I don't think it's going to matter a ton. I think this is the best thing you can do with Kyogre at this point, right? Get Water Spouts off, get your damage off. It's not doing very much. I assume this Rillaboom, I think it's probably Assault Vest. I think we saw that last game with some calcs. Maybe not, but I don't know. But yeah, no, living the Wormwind probably indicates that it is Assault Vest. And that's a pretty good use of your Pokemon, right? Both the Rillaboom and Kyogre are just not doing very much in this matchup. Right, they don't hit Dialga, they don't hit the opposing Rillaboom very well, although I presume this Rillaboom has U-turn, so it might be able to. And then Rillaboom also really hates Ice Rider, so you're not really getting much value out of it, and so it makes sense to just sack it for damage basically, and then say that you are stalling out their Dynamax. They're not doing a ton with their Dynamax. They're taking 1 KO, and then your Kyogre Incineroarization is going to do enough, although saying that you are going to be maxing your Incineroar is maybe a little questionable. Maybe you want to try to create a max Ogre game plan that's a little better. But yeah, so here we just see Paul getting all the value he can out of his Rillaboom with that Grassy Glide. And the Grassy Glide from Bingjie's side going to protect. Max Quake getting another Spadef boost. Zacian coming in, just immediately threatening the Sacred Sword. Okay, so we do see the double switch, which is pretty reasonable. I think that, so Dialga was going down if the switch didn't happen, right? Sacred Sword is always coming out into that slot. It reasonably could have been not Sacred Sword, right? It could have been a Sacred Sword into the Rillaboom just to KO that, and if you are reading the Incineroar switch in, that's an okay play, because it makes it so your max Ogre is a little more valuable. And I actually, now that I say that, I don't hate that line nearly as much, just because I would expect the Rillaboom to switch out. Or if the Rillaboom doesn't switch out, you take the KO, and then your Kyogre is actually doing stuff for the rest of the game. Whereas now, I guess the max Kyogre is taken about 50% from the Grassy Glide. Is probably living it, so maybe living 2. Certainly after a second Intimidate, it's living 2. But yeah, okay. So just doubling the Dialga, really safe play there. guaranteeing a KO, and if you took the KO on, yeah, guaranteeing a KO, and if only one Pokemon switched out, you were taking 2 KOs. Or rather, if neither Pokemon switched out, you were taking 2 KOs. If the you get what I'm saying. Good play, very safe play on Paul's part. You really like this time he is taking advantage of the reverse Dynamax, the relative underutilization of Dynamax by Bingjie. And like I said, I did not think Bingjie, put himself in a position to win game one very effectively, and then won anyways. And I'm surprised that he went for like a very similar line. And Paul has just adjusted incredibly well to that, and put himself in a position and, geez, just immediately getting crit and Kyogre dying. I guess that settles the debate about how much the damage would do, right? It does at least 70, or at least 66% for the crit to KO. But at this point, his Dialga's at low enough health that it's dying to a Sacred Sword, I think. Maybe not, honestly. With the Grassy Turn recovery and another Intimidate, maybe not. But actually, this is like... Okay, so Paul's Incineroar is faster, but they either trade Fake Outs or Paul takes out the Incineroar and then gets his Sacred Sword off into the Dialga. It could be into the Incineroar, which is more scary. You can also, protect Flare Blitz, right? Because Bingjie is not faking out the Incineroar. That's the way to lose the game. And so you might... It's like... Then covering for the fact that Protect Flare Blitz is an option means that you should probably, if you're Bingjie, fake out the Zacian and Earth Power the Incineroar, because you do have to actually beat the Incineroar at some point. And then if Paul fakes out your Incineroar, then you get damage at the Incineroar, but you don't KO the Zacian. And the Zacian is probably the thing that wins the game. It also just might have sub, and if Zacian has sub, this is a really... Oh! Man, I just said Incineroar isn't allowed to fake out Incineroar. What if Incineroar went for fake out into your Incineroar? You just lose, right? Like, I guess you don't necessarily just lose. If fake out goes into fake out, then Zacian clicks Sacred Sword into Dialga, and then Dialga lives presumably, and Earth powers back into Zacian, and you actually win the game. So that's fair. Bingjie was saying, like, even if the fake out went into Incineroar, I was still in a fine spot, and if it wasn't, I'm covering for the play that I just said, that I thought was Paul's best play, which is Flare Blitz with Incineroar and Protect Zacian. So, I just got one-upped there, I guess. Yeah, I just got super one-upped. But Dialga not KOing, and so I think that, and Dialga doesn't have Protect, so I think that puts Paul in a pretty good position. It does come down to Incineroars, but Paul's Incineroar does have a little more health and is not actually... Oh, there's speed tying. That, that actually also makes a little more sense, too. Yeah. So now they're going to, Is this... Okay. I confess, I have never figured out the optimal way to play the Incineroar versus Incineroar endgame, especially when they're both at full health. Like, what do you do? I really don't know. If someone wants to, someone who's better at math wants to, analyze this or, simulate this, and figure out, what's the optimal strategy for the Incineroar versus Incineroar endgame. Do you click Flare Blitz and take the recoil but do slightly more damage? Do you click Darkest Lariat and not do that? Do you click Parting Shot until they're, down to minus something? Is there a, and also each additional Parting Shot reduces... Each additional Parting Shot has a smaller damage reduction than the last one, right? So the difference between having one stage of attack and 3/4 and one stage, neutral stage of attack and minus one stage of attack is a 33% drop, and then the next one is is not a 33% drop. It's significantly smaller than 30% drop. So I don't have the numbers off the top of my head. I don't want to make up numbers, but it is, yeah. So there is probably a point at which you Parting Shot up until a point and then you don't. I would really like it if there was an optimal number for this. And so if you know how to figure this out, please let me know. Let's see. We're only in game 2. It also might just come down to a speed tie, but the important thing here is that Paul was up one attack essentially. Oh, and he's Citrus. Okay, never mind. The game is over. Citrus Berry always sealed it for Paul, so it did not matter. Bingjie hoping for a crit. We're just gonna make this faster. Yeah, so there you go. So the Citrus Berry making that entirely irrelevant. But that being said, I do want the answer to that question. So if anyone knows how to answer that question, let me know. Otherwise, I might just have to like simulate it myself at some point. All right, so moving on to game number 3. So here's my thoughts going into game 3. I thought Bingjie was supposed to adjust after game 1. I thought he was supposed to lose game 1 and he should have adjusted. He did not adjust. I also suspect that if he had lost game 1, he would have adjusted. Because I think it's just like a mental thing. Paul did a really good job of stalling out the Dynamax in both games. He probably should have won the Dynamax. He probably should have won with his Dynamax in both games and just like kind of decided not to win game 1. He could reasonably try to anticipate a change or switch up to a different mode, right? Like we don't have any information on what this Kingdra set is, so it might not be unreasonable to go towards that, especially since it's not an awful matchup. It might be an awful matchup. You really don't want to take a Max Worm with Kingdra. But Grimmsnarl is also a possibility. Obviously, if it's a support set, it dies to a Dialga, but if it's not a support set, then it doesn't. It has Sash normally, and the Sash is either on that or on the Kingdra, right? So one of those things gets to live in attack. I don't know. Let's see. But we do see a slight switch up. So both players switched up. Paul deciding that the Kyogre just not doing it for me, and the Incineroar not doing it for me, and just hard switching to Rillaboomization, but presumably bringing the same 4 Pokemon. Maybe you swap out the Incineroar, but the Incineroar is like the good Pokemon against this team, so you certainly don't do that. So this is really like projecting what he's doing. He's going to have Incineroar, Ogre, back if he's not crazy. I'm gonna get called out for that after he switches to something else, but and then Incineroar, Dialga on the other side. So realizing that the Rillaboom lines were not really working out, Incineroar maybe a little better. I still feel like that doesn't really stop your max from being wasted. But Incineroar certainly really good into the lead that Paul led this time. So worked out for Bingjie. All right, so let's see. So we see all the stuff come out. Zacian, Dialga, Incineroar, Rillaboom. Interesting that Paul's Rillaboom is slower than Bingjie's Incineroar. Wait. Yeah, that is really interesting, right? Because game 1, I guess we can pull it back up here. We saw Kyogre, Dialga, Rillaboom, and then Paul's Incineroar. Okay, so, but we saw the Incineroar speed tie in game 2, right? They did not go, so Bingjie's move first, Bingjie's move first, not a speed tie. Okay, did I just misread? Was I just talking shit about the fake out turn, just like misremembering what happened? Yeah, I just was. Okay, fair enough. So Bingjie's Incineroar presumably max speed, because it is outspeeding this Rillaboom. Good to know. That is not uncommon on Ice Rider teams, at least from what I've seen. And so interesting turn here. I think that Paul's in a bad position now just because his 2 good Pokemon got intimidated and like Wormwind is potentially coming out and really safe into the Rillaboom without the Zacian potential switch in. But we're just seeing it protect, so just the freest Wormwind of his life. Potentially a parting shot into the Zacian. Nope, into the Rillaboom, so fair play. And then we just see a U-turn come out. So Paul trying to reposition, but like without the pressure from Zacian coming, like when Zacian is in the back, Bingjie has to keep his Incineroar in the back, because otherwise he takes too much. But now he can like actually use his Incineroar while the Zacian's on the field, and that's really valuable. So now he just like I don't know. This seems like a blowout. He's just got so much positioning advantage right here. Paul is trying to do his best to like stall out the Dynamax, but this time it's looking like Bingjie's going to take 2 KOs, and that's a very different animal, right? So Zacian coming in, the Incineroar presumably coming in, yeah. Grassy Glide coming out into the Kyogre. I can see like a Max Quake or a Max Wormwind. I assume Max Wormwind. Oh, just taking the KO on Zacian. That also works, I guess like, I mean that was played into like a protect, whereas I think that Grassy Glide into the Kyogre slot and Max Quake into the Kyogre slot guaranteed you a second KO no matter what, unless it was like switch into Incineroar on the Zacian slot and max the Kyogre maybe lived, but then they're maxing a Kyogre into Rillaboom Dialga, which is really not good. So I don't really like that play, but I think Bingjie was far enough ahead that he's like allowed to make it. And I mean, yeah. Now, what is he doing? You know, like what's the end game here? Water Spout's not gonna do anything to a +2 Spadef Dialga. Um, yeah, and so now just 2 Grassy Glides into that slot kind of gets you there. Or just switch out. That's fair. Um, I mean, Paul still has his Dynamax technically, but yeah, this game seems pretty over. We're gonna fast forward it, but like I'm not especially, you know, you even got the Flareblast burn, but it doesn't matter. So not the greatest set. I mean, yeah, like game one, I'm actually upset at Paul because I think Paul was supposed to win that. I mean, I have no investment in this game, and yet I'm annoyed at how Paul played that. Game two, I think Bingjie was supposed to adjust, knowing that he was not in a good, advantageous position. Game one, and instead he made the exact same plays, and then Paul took advantage of the position. And then game three, Bingjie just adjusted, and Paul also tried to adjust, but like when you are, I don't think that. I think he played it right. Is the thing. I think he played the early game right, and so I don't know if he was supposed to. I respect the decision to, but it just didn't work out. So interesting game. 2 very very good players, and very cool teams. You know, we see the Dialga and Iron Defense Body Press Calyrex putting in work. Actually, that's not true. Calyrex did absolutely nothing the entire time. The only thing that Calyrex did, Iron Defense did nothing. What really paid off was just having all the defense investment, meaning that you could live the double up. That was what paid off. So, I mean, when Dialga kind of putting in work against the Zacian Ogre team, not too surprising. That is probably Dialga's best matchup. And honestly, with Body Press, Calyrex is a lot more bringable into that. So I like that Bingjie has figured out a way to make Calyrex a little better into Kyogre. I think it's a cool concept. I'd like to see people explore it a little further. And yeah, that's why I wanted to show the replay. And yeah, moving back to the spreadsheet. So moving on to the next match. So we see the Cruisers and Stars. The Cruisers managed to beat the Stars. The Cruisers have not had a great season after breaking the points record last year. But, you know, the top end players have still been good. You know, Snow, Rox, and Nasuya, Sohai won this week. But, yeah, just really struggling to get the output they needed. But they did finally get their first win, so good for them. The next match is the Puppies and Simians. Like I said, we did win this match. If there's one match I would recommend you watch, it would be the Crawl Shots versus Damo match, because I remember this being a really phenomenal match. And Carl went undefeated last year in NPA, was not the MVP because he didn't play every week, but went undefeated in playoffs as well, and was obviously the most important part of us winning the championship, and consistently a very cool team builder, and used a cool team this week with a Raikou on it, so would recommend watching that match as well. And then the Rollouts and Blizzards tied. Both the Blizzards at least have had a tough season so far, but you know, they're getting some points on the board, which is a good start. And then the Monarchs and the Samurais. So the Samurais, again, we beat them last week, but other than that, they have been very, very dominant this entire season, and I think that they are arguably the second best team in the league. So I am just impressed in general by what they've been doing and by their team. So big win against the Monarchs. Monarchs are historically one of the best franchises, and kind of having a down year this year, but I think that, you know, the Monarchs core is just so good. Having players like Justin, Mao, and Z to, you know, play every week they're insane. They are historically some of the best players in NPA, and then the really strong Chinese core of Xinyu and Sting are really pulling their weight as well. And generally speaking, so I'm a little surprised they're having a down year. I think they've also probably just had a tough schedule so far. And then we have the Detectives and Postwick. So you might notice the Detectives brought almost the exact same team for like 5 matches. And so I do want to highlight the team, because when something like this happens, it means at least everyone on this team thinks this team is really good. This has happened in the past, right? Like the Cruisers had a week where they had 5 people bring Colossal last year, and they were just gonna keep doing it until people stopped them. And so this is a team, it's really scary when a team comes together and is just everyone on the team is capable of using 1 or 2 really, really competent archetypes, just because that means everyone has to prep for the same archetype. And if you don't, anyone could bring it, and usually it's because there's one player who is really good at it, who's willing to teach everyone else how to use it. Last year, that was Roxanne with Colossal, who Roxanne's just, mind-bogglingly good at using Colossal. Used it to top cut players cut 4. And then Joey 9, of course, known for using Evil Tall, has used multiple different variants of Evil Tall, and using it this week as well. But I think he's probably a big part of why this team is using it so much, and they're going to be scary to face because you have to prep for Evil Tall for every single player, no matter what their tendencies are. But I do want to check out this team because 4 people had used the exact same 6, and they have a pretty good. They had 3-1 record with the 6. They had a 2-2 record with the 6, and then Joe also won. That's a pretty good indicator that I should look into the team. And in particular, I want to watch the Torviv versus Tapu JJ match, Jeremy Odena, just because those are 2 of the best players using it. And Odena is using the Rinya team that I think we've talked about in the past. Maybe we didn't talk about it. Maybe that was in my week 2 recording that I just decided not to post. Rinya team is this Sun 6 that are really, really common right now. You've probably seen it on ladder, and it is just it's Assault Plus Groudon, Iron Ball, Fake Out, Grimmsnarl with Trick, and just like abusing Life Orb, Zard, and Groudon as your 2 maxes, along with Gastrodon to help beat Rain. Really, really competent team. You can run a bunch of different sets on the Pokemon, so don't necessarily expect to see just the standard 6 that we saw from the person who originally created it. I used a different set in my week 2 when I played Gavin. But that being said, this is like one of the most standard teams, and it's going to be interesting to see how this Evoltalization team stacks up into maybe the best or the second best team in the format. All right, and so we see we have Jeremy on the front and Torviv on the far side. And right off the bat, we do see the Zard lead. I think that if you're bringing Zard, I feel like you're leading it more often than not. There are a few modes where you have the flexibility to pivot into Zard later in the game, but that's not always the case. And Torviv bringing Aleki right up into the double ground team, which is a little surprising. I would be really scared about bringing Aleki, but I think that if you're weak to Zard, you kind of have to bring it. And just like, it creates a really volatile game where like, do you max the Zard? Do you switch it out? Does Aleki just pivot? Does it pivot off of Incineroar? Does the Aleki just max and click like Max Strike? Is it I don't know. Especially game 1, we don't know if it's Life Orb. It's a really scary situation to be in facing down an Aleki, just in general. But having double ground is one of the most consistent ways to deal with it. And so we do see the Incineroar just hard switch out. I don't know if I like hard switching out. Like, obviously it covers for a max lightning into the Incineroar slot. And I guess you probably, if you are Torviv, you don't necessarily want to max lightning the Charizard slot. But the Incineroar was kind of just free there, are you really maxing the Aleki turn 1 into a double ground team? That's just such an aggressive play. I mean, obviously we see that he didn't. And then that's just a free parting shot. Usually into Evoltal, just reducing his damage right away. Kind of like Evoltal normally wants to, if it's not maxing, and it might max, we haven't seen it yet, but if it's a Life Orb Evoltal, it reasonably could max. But the traditional Evoltals kind of just want to sit on field and click Snarl a bunch of times and click Oblivion Wing a bunch of times and just say, like, I'm going to slowly out-damage you and recover my health while you're not doing nearly enough to this really bulky Pokemon. And against that, if you get a parting shot off onto it, suddenly it's not doing much damage back. And yes, it's slowing down you, but it's not really doing enough. And so I would have liked the parting shot, but we do see the Evoltal max. So it does look like it's presumably Life Orb Evoltal. I guess we'll see this turn. Electrorub coming out, doing a lot of damage to this Charizard. And then the Airstream coming out, and not quite picking it up, but it will pick it up next turn after Solar Power and Life Orb Recoil, presumably. Okay, so we see that the Charizard is not Life Orb. So that's notable, because I believe the original team was, I forget if it was Life Orb or Lum. I think it was Life Orb. But, you could reasonably change it to Lum, especially if you are scared of Thunderwave Thundurus, Thunderwave, Grimmsnarl are the big 2. Also Spore Amoonguss, but, like, who's sporing your Charizard? You're just killing the Amoonguss. And so, getting that Wildfire off and getting another turn, but, like, getting another turn in name only because, obviously, this Charizard is dying to any number of attacks. But, I mean, the thing is, like, if the Aleki is clicking Electroweb, then it's, well, no, there's no reason to click Electroweb, right? You're just hitting into a Groudon then. So Aleki is just doing things. The Torviv has 2 attacks this turn, and Groudon has to do something. Or you can switch out Charizard. Not the most unreasonable thing. It would die to another turn, but, like, getting it back at neutral speed and then getting a Heat Wave off later in the game is not the worst thing. Just, like, you're facing down Aleki plus Zacian, and you have to get rid of this Evoltal, so you probably just never get it off. You probably just don't take the damage. Although I think switching in Gastrodon here is like not unreasonable if you have it. But okay, we just see Eliki hard switch, which does force the Yveltal to attack the Charizard. So I guess this was covering for a max guard and a Precipice Blades, right? Which then just KOs the Eliki. And I think you're allowed to do that if you're ahead. You're just not taking any advantage. Because, like, otherwise then, okay, well, sure, but you're getting a Max Darkness off of the Groudon, the Charizard's dying anyways, or you're getting an Airstream off, even if they make that really hard read. And also, like, by clicking Airstream, you're not really covering for Max Guard anyways, because now you're losing your Yveltal and you're losing you're taking some damage on your Groudon, on your Landorus, excuse me. And we do just see Rock Tomb come out, not worried about the Eliki, just KOing that Yveltal. So both Max is gone, and Wildfire still in effect, doing so much damage. But the Landorus is in a pretty good spot, just because we see Incineroar, Groudon, Zacian, none of those Pokemon doing a ton to Landorus. And White Herb, yeah, so it's not even getting intimidated. And so we see Protect into the Fake Out, and Screech. Okay, cool. So this is like, I've heard about Screech Eliki. I think I've seen it on ladder like once or twice. But yeah, kind of cool that it's seen some play, presumably for like some. Obviously, Yveltal carries foul play, so it can click a physical stab as well. Landorus obviously wants to max. Zacian can do a ton of damage with it. So Screech just kind of, I guess, doubling up into this Groudon with 2 Screeches and an Earthquake is going to pick it up. I don't know if you really want to do that because like you are hitting your own Eliki, but yeah, we'll see. And then we see Eliki Protect, go for the Earthquake, that's fair. And then we just see Shaka on Incineroar, so I'm presumably getting a parting shut off. Also, the existence of like Heat Crash is a pretty good indication that this is an Assault Vest Groudon, for what it's worth. Although, I think I've seen more Fire Punch. I think Fire Punch was on the original. So, Heat Crash, interesting take. Does do less damage to Zacian than Fire Punch, I believe. I believe it's 60 base power against Zacian, but does do more against like Rillaboom, for example. And Amoonguss, too. And so yeah, so G-Max Wildfire, again, showing just why it's so good, putting in that damage. But now, I mean, Screech is going to put so much pressure. I guess that might come down to which Zacian is faster, right? Because if you Screech, then you either can KO the Zacian, in which case Precipice Blades is winning the game. Precipice Blades, and then you have an Incineroar and a Groudon, and you can KO both with Zacian. Or you are Screeching and KOing the Groudon, at which point the Zacian KOs the Eliki. The Zacian goes for a Fake Out sub, and you win the game that way. So this seems like it's in Jeremy's favor. We do see Electroweb, so Jeremy's favor, provided he hits Precipice Blades, which is always a huge if, right? And that is the one downside. And, making the really conservative play of going for Sacred Sword, maybe making it like an unnecessary read, in my opinion, because, like, I don't think Jeremy needed to switch out. Alternatively, Torviv was playing for a throw, which is also, like, pretty reasonable, right? Like, Jeremy could have reasonably thrown. But I think that just by clicking your attacking buttons, Jeremy won the game, and he just did the right thing there. Again, provided you hit your Precipice Blades. So that was game 1, and Jeremy dealing with the like pressure of maxing a Charizard in front of an Eliki really well, coming out on top, just like playing a safe end game. So, all right, game 2, and we are going to see the Incineroar Gastrodon lead. So here, like, this is saying like I really don't like Eliki, I guess, but so I guess one cool thing about Screech Eliki is now it can provide value in front of ground types, and that is something that Eliki sorely needs to do in a format where one of the best teams is running 2 ground types, and 2 ground types not unusual, right? We saw that on North's team as well, on North and NJ's team that we had on the channel with the Calyrex Shadow Groudon Gastrodon team. I believe it was Gastrodon. So now, like, potentially, there's still like a Screech Max Darkness play potentially coming out. But we do see a Protect, keeping the Eliki on the field, and Max Darkness just OHKOing that Gastrodon. We don't know if it's a physical or special Max Darkness that OHKO the Gastrodon. So presumably special, right? It's -1. But that just means the Gastrodon. I don't know my calcs. Don't know my Gastrodon calcs. I think most Gastrodon are physically bulky to better deal with the Zacian. But that is a lot of damage. That is a crazy amount of damage. And the parting shot coming out into Eliki. Why? I really don't like that. I don't know why you parting shot the Eliki. I don't think Eliki is the threat, right? The Eliki is you saw it was support. You saw it Screech. It's Screech Electroweb, presumably Thunderbolt or Volt Switch, Protect. You don't need to parting shot it. The Yveltal is the thing that has been maxing every game. if you could slow down your opponent's max, you were usually winning the game. I guess that he went for a yawn and just thought he would live, but I would have liked to see a parting shot into Yveltal, generally speaking. And so now, I mean, it's going to be so hard for Jeremy to come back. He's in such an awful position now that his Gastrodon went down, basically. And yeah, we are going to see the trade of... Oh, wow. Yveltal living just barely. It should go down to another Life Orb recoil, potentially. But, yeah, this is not a great spot for him. Yeah, so the double up KO and the Theization. Yveltal does go down to the recoil, and then, yeah, we see confirmed that it's Assault Vest, but it's not going to 3v1. That's just, probably unreasonable, yeah, especially with the Screech coming out. But, yeah, this game's pretty much over. We'll fast forward this one. Torviv just playing really safe, getting the Screeches off so that Behemoth Blade always OHKOs. And, yeah, there you go. So, yeah, just I think it was just the Gastrodon calc. I don't know my Gastrodon calcs off the top of my head. We can calc it. Okay, so it turns out there is a ton of variance in terms of what the damage can do, right? So you could be bold 252-4, and you would just, murder it. If you are, like, bold, like, 188 special defense, then and he got a very lucky roll. Reasonably could be anywhere in between. I suspect that it's somewhere in between. I suspect that it was, like, a 50% roll, maybe a little bit in the Yveltal's favor. Like, this is it. Like, I don't know. Something like, these odds are pretty reasonable spreads. But, I don't know off the top of my head, and it's it's hard to take it. Like, right, looks like that thing. Like, you could reasonably just get the 25% roll, and we would just have no idea. So, I guess we just don't know the spread, but it's good to know, right? Even it's timid Life Orb. It doesn't have to be modest, and just picking up that knockout. Gastrodon, not a very good Pokemon, turns out. Just does not have the stats to keep up in a restricted metagame unless it's exactly like eating water-type attacks or maxing. But yeah, so this time we go back to the same Game 1 lead. Jeremy doing the exact same thing as Game 1, and Torviv also doing the exact same thing. So far, just an exact mirror. But this time we see the Darkness in Tizard, and yeah, that's just going to pick it up. So not going for the Airstream, this time going for the Darkness, and yeah, not the most interesting of games here. I just think that you don't ever switch out the Incineroar, right? Like, this Eleki is not an Eleki that wants to max. He has not maxed the Eleki yet. And I don't think you max the Eleki into a Groudon team. It only has an electric move. So I think you just fake it out, and you make sure that your Charizard lives a turn. And you, by just ensuring that, you are so far ahead. Charizard at +1 speed it won't outspeed Eleki, but just, I don't know, get your Wildfire off. Wildfire is so good. Wildfire puts so much damage out, it enables your Groudon endgames. You need to get it up. And he made, a really, really aggressive play here. And just got punished by the simplest possible play from Torviv. I think the most straightforward possible play from Torviv. If you're expecting the Eleki to protect, then this is pretty reasonable, right? But, you are making a really aggressive play, assuming the Eleki is going to protect, when honestly, the fake out max Wildfire into Eleki line is not necessarily favored into Yveltal clicking Airstream into Zard, right? Because Zard is in a max Darkness range. You are trading your Dynamax for a KO and 2 turns of their Dynamax. And, I mean, that's not even, that good for you. So, and Energization comes in for free without being parting shotted, which is, also a big deal. So, I don't know. I don't like that play from Jeremy. I think it's overly aggressive, and, the play that you are calling out leads to a pretty fair game state, a pretty even game state, which, I don't know if Torviv just declines that, So, I mean, at this point, again, just kind of blowouts. That's the thing. If you are, there's the game. I feel like you want to put yourself in a position where you can play Pokemon. Okay, so basically, I guess what I want to say is that, if a line that you are opting for has the opportunity to immediately lose you the game, like this one did, and if the reciprocal, if you call it right, is not that you immediately win the game, which it does not, then why would you go for that line? That's my take. Yes, if you call it right, you will be in a slightly advantageous position, maybe a significantly advantageous position. I certainly wouldn't call it significant. And so I just don't think you go for that line then. I just think that you find, like, you had a safe play in front of you. I don't know. But that's that. Really, I mean, I think people have been calling this Snow's team. I think that's what it's been attributed to, Snow being a Japanese player. And I am curious as to I am interested to see more replays, but I'm not going to put this team on the stream for like 5 times in a row. So I'll look at that myself. I do think it's a very solid team. Screech Aleki, very cool. Very cool that it gives it a way to like deal with ground types in a format dominated by ground types and like play into them. So I like that a lot. And then the last match I want to cover, like I mentioned, is the first match of Week 4 that has happened, which is Sam Pandelis, World's runner-up in 2017, versus MiJa, who is the Korean national champion in, I forget exactly which year, but two very good players playing. And this match was a great match, and so I'm excited to showcase it. All right, so quickly going over the teams, we see MiJa or Candy Bonks running the Evoltalization team that we just covered, which I did not think about, but we are going to showcase this team twice because I do want to see it more times. And then Zelda, on the other hand, running the Calyrex Solgaleo team that I have talked down multiple times as bad team. But he had a pretty cool take on it and like did very well with it. So I am interested to see how he to plays this out. So game 1, we see Torn Ogre. You've seen this lead before, right? And MiJa leading Amoonguss Evoltal. And yeah, so we do see the Kyogre moving first, which means that this is Modest Evoltal and presumably Timid Kyogre. But also, it's not going to really matter because of the... Actually, it absolutely matters, right? Because now you don't have to click Tailwind turn 1. You can reasonably click a Hurricane, which is... otherwise, the Amoonguss is really scary. And so now you get to get your Water Spot off, even if you don't... Without getting like worrying about a Snarl. Sam might recognize this team and know that it's like a Life Orb Evoltal, but, in general, like now Amoonguss is a lot more threatened because it is faster Kyogre. And it's obviously the Tornadus Dynamax. So I like this a lot. If you watched, I guess I never did any content on it, but I was using John Evans' team, Players Cup 3 winning team for most of Series 11. And that team maxed the Tornadus a lot. It was a Life Orb Tornadus. And I thought that led to some really, really clean lines into a lot of Series 11 teams or Series 8 teams. And I thought that maxing Tornadus was very good. I know that Sam also used the Dual Weather team with Tornadus in his Players Cup 3 run, which I think lost in like top 16 or top 8 or something like that in Oceania. And so I think he was top 6 actually. And so I know that he's familiar with those lines, and I guess he likes maxing Torn as well. But yeah, so I presume you have to just like Airstream the Amoonguss, I assume. You just care about that too much. But getting that Kyogre speed boost is always really valuable. And we actually see the Tornadus is slower than the Kyogre, so that means it's Choice Scarf Kyogre. Choice Scarf Kyogre, for what it's worth, could be modest, but then you don't outspeed Zacian or Calyrex. So usually it is timid, which means it is lacking in damage output, and we saw it only do 42 to this Life Orb Evoltal. And yeah, Amoonguss protecting, just covering for the obvious play. But so I guess that also means that we don't know if it's timid or modest Evoltal. I assume it's timid. Just like in general, like I feel like this is the type of team that would run timid Evoltal. Again, you also really care about that speed stat, although you can't hit the 149 threshold even if you're modest Evoltal, so it's not that big a deal. But yeah, so just getting that Airstream off, now it's locked into Water Spout, and we do see the Kyogre switch out into Solgaleo, covering for another Airstream, and the Tornadus just take the KO. Amoonguss was kind of stuck there. I don't think, like, you could reasonably switch into Zacian, but you are taking a lot of damage with Zacian. You don't really want to take that. And then we do see the really safe max Airstream, just trying to keep up, right? But I don't know. Do you try to keep up? Like, on one hand, you do kind of want to keep up because you want to force them to click max Airstream again. But on the other hand, like, what is the Tornadus clicking otherwise, right? It's always clicking max Airstream. And so you know that max Darkness is killing Ogre from here. You know that you can cover for a Solgaleo switch in too. And against this team, I assume it's going to be Incineroar as the last Pokemon. So, maybe Airstream is certainly better into Incineroar than Darkness. But Airstream's a lot worse into Solgaleo than Darkness is. And I don't think you need that second speed boost. especially since Solgaleos generally have a little more bulk. And if you are Timid Eviltal, then you also outspeed the Solgaleo at +1. If they're both a +1, but I guess you do cover for like the third Airstream boost coming out, and you being at +2, you might outspeed still. I don't know. I feel like I would click Max Darkness there. And we just need to protect from Solgaleo. Going into the Alki here, pretty reasonable. But now we see the Max Darkness come out into the Solgaleo. Not quite KOing. So that was really close. That's a Life Orb Eviltal for you, right? But not picking it up. But at the max, and then Weakness Policy. So that's good confirmation. And then the Electroweb. So again, you are forcing the Torrent to click your stream there, but the Electroweb not actually doing that much here because you are outbeating, and also like it has the ability to click Tailwind next turn anyways. So I would have liked to see like a Thunderbolt into Torrent, just get the KO. And yeah, so Sunsteel coming out here, Electroweb coming out, and this Choice Scarf, Kyogre, and Incineroar as the last. Yeah, like we expected. So I imagine if Origin Pulse hits, you are in an okay spot, although Rain is ended. Origin Pulse will always KO the Eliki. If, again, 85% of the time it KOs the Eliki. And with Rain over, Incineroar should just KO the Zacian too. So really just needs to hit the Eliki, and yeah, we do see it hit the Eliki. We see the Incineroar outspeed the Zacian in Tailwind. This means it's either really fast Incineroar or slower, bulkier Zacian, and we don't know, but no Zacian, my Zacian was 169 speed, and you literally cannot go slower than that unless you are a minus speed nature. And you could go 0 speed EVs, but you're just wasting 4 EVs then. And so at that point, like, that is 85 speed Incineroar at the very least. But realistically, I don't think MiJa is the type of person to run min speedization. On this team especially, where you have an Airstream and an Eliki, you want to like outspeed Eliki at +1. And so it is probably a faster Zacian, which means it's a really fast Incineroar, is what my takeaway from this is. But yeah, we do see that Sam picks up that game. This is a different game if MiJa either Thunderbolts the Tornado slot and KOs it. If it's not Sash Torn, which it might have been, right? Like, this was the situation. If it's Sash Torn, then it doesn't matter. Although, if it's Sash Torn, I think you just Thunderbolt the Tornadus and Airstream the Tornadus, and you just like guarantee you get rid of it, because the Tornadus clicking Tailwind is what facilitates the Kyogre endgame, which you otherwise can't win. Yeah, I think he was just supposed to KO the Tornadus. If he was reading the switch, reading the Protect, then that's still like more of a read than I want to make. Also, for what it's worth, Sam maybe was just supposed to max guard that turn, right? Like if he max guards, sacks the Soul, clicks Tailwind, Origin Pulse, no, he doesn't win because the Eliki, he needs to get chip on the Eliki. So yeah, that's fair, I guess. Although if it's Sash Torn, then maybe max guard. Max guard into sacking Soul, into you have to click Tailwind, Origin Pulse, and then if the Eviltal uses a single target move to target the Ogre goes down, turns at 1 HP. Torrent can KO the Eliki, assuming you hit the Origin Pulse on Eliki, which you need to do anyways for this endgame. And then you have an Incineroar to fake out and do whatever you want into the Zacian once Rain is over. Excuse me. So I think Sam, if he's Sash, could have won the game more consistently, slightly more consistently. If he's not Sash, then this is pretty reasonable, and MiJa should have made a different play in this situation. That's my take. So moving on to game 2. We see the same leads on both sides. No, sorry, we saw it in Mungus League last time. So Reggie Eliki coming out. I think Sash Eliki is the biggest punish to Torn Kyogre, and we saw that it wasn't Life Orb. So my next impression is that it's good. Oh, we saw the Eviltal's Life Orb. So my next guess is that it's probably Sash. It could be Magnet, but Magnet has dropped off in popularity tremendously. And Sash just like immediately getting these Electrowebs off onto Tornadus and Kyogre is such a huge punish to whatever they do. Even though it's Scarf Ogre, so will outspeed. So we do see the Tailwind Spout, Sash coming out, Electroweb coming out, doing a ton of damage, Eviltal picking up whatever KO it wants, and it opts to KO the Kyogre. And then Solgaleo comes in. Yeah, so Solgaleo being obviously the preferred Dynamax on this sort of team, although Torn was very competent last game, obviously. And, Full Metal Body means Electroweb not doing very much. But yeah, so Protect here, It's going to outspeed the Eviltal, I think. Yeah, okay. So we do see outspeed Eviltal. Eviltal still has physical foul play. It could reasonably click a physical move here, although I might also just not want to proc the weakness policy. Maybe you just click Airstream into Torn, try to pick up a KO. Quake probably stops you from picking up the KO, and try to live to fight another day. I don't know. And yeah, so that's what he does do. So I like that play. Also make sure you have speed in Tailwind. And then Amoonguss comes in. So I'm a little surprised that Torn didn't taunt. I guess it might not have taunt. It had protect. So protect, Tailwind, Hurricane, unknown move, right? Could be taunt. Could also be something else. If you are maxing it a lot, then you might just like have max darkness, or you have max flare, or something like that. Or Icy Wind. Icy Wind's also I think the most common one. And so just switching out, not trying to get damage onto it as the I guess you never get damage into it. No, you do, because you're +2 speed and the tornado should outspeed Eviltal, right? We saw that last game. So you could have just gotten damage into the Amoonguss. But yeah, we just need to switch out, maximize. If you have Mind Storm, and of course you do, then you just KO the Amoonguss anyways. And also cover for like a Sucker Punch potentially. Also stops you from faking out the Zation, but you can still fake out the Eviltal. But we do see double protect here, stalling out the Tailwind turns, just making sure you don't go down to a max Quake from Solgaleo. Very safe plays here. Solgaleo protects, so yeah, obviously just covering for that foul play that could come out. Double up, foul play Sacred Sword should pick up the KO on Solg. Sacred Sword, of course, ignoring the defense stat. Also, Zation could just take out the Incineroar. Foul play, then proc weakness policy if it doesn't KO, and I think it might also just KO here. But if it does miss the KO, then you are in an awkward spot. But if Zation has Sucker Punch, then if Eviltal has Sucker Punch, which I don't think this one does, because that's protect. But if it did, then you could just cover that Torn that way as well. But yeah, so actually we see the Sacred Sword come out into the Incineroar. So, if depending on the Calyrex, that different things happen. But yeah, this is still an okay position for Sam, right? You have the Torn getting Tailwind up, and then it still probably dies, but it could KO the Eviltal, and the Zation's in an awkward spot. But Eviltal protecting and quick attack. I did know this was coming out. I did watch this game earlier, but yeah. Quick attack, really cool attack. We've seen it on ladder a lot, and this is kind of showing what it can do. Getting that KO on the Torn before it gets Tailwind up because they are both the same priority. And we did say foul play actually would have just outright KO'd, so really not much Sam could do there. Just well played endgame. Quick attack coming in clutch there, because it would have made it a little more awkward for sure if he didn't have it. And then moving on to game 3, and let's see. So we see an Amoonguss Incineroar lead, so a really passive lead on Sam's part. I like that a lot for Sam, because you've seen MiJa run these really aggressive leads. If you are Koba Berry Amoonguss, you are probably getting a Spore off unless the Alki maxes, and you really don't. The Alki max is pretty reasonable into this team, honestly. It does a lot to a lot of Pokemon, and the Eviltal still is going to get Max Lightning, Oblivion Wing is still doing a lot of damage. But it doesn't feel great to max your Alki just to soak up an attack from Amoonguss. That being said, Amoonguss is never clicking Rage Powder here. You could Max Lightning the Incineroar and Oblivion Wing the Incineroar and or Oblivion Wing the Amoonguss and get your Electro Train up and also get the Koba Berry up. But you might just lose to bring in Tornadus to get Tailwind up. There's no Solgaleo, so that's not even the worst. Solgaleo is maybe not the best Pokemon to bring into Eviltal, is also my other takeaway. But we just see a Protect. Double protect, really safe, covering for that fake out, and just covering for the Spore. And we see a Amoonguss come in. So okay, so that's a little. I mean, obviously Max Lightning play was really aggressive. I'm not saying that it was the right play by any means. It was a line, but this play, so MiJa has one way of dealing with Spore, and he has to call a slot essentially. And so he said, okay, you're going to click Spore into the Alki slot, and if you click Spore into the Eviltal slot, I'm in a bad spot. Reasonable decision. I would think that the Alki is the scarier threat. Obviously, the Eviltal can Dynamax, but the Alki just doing so much, putting so much pressure with the Electrowebs, threatening the Solgaleo, and threatening the Kyogre, and just doing a lot, and ignoring the Amoonguss redirecting with the Electroweb too. So, let's see. And we just see the Oblivion Wing eating the Koba Berry, and Parting Shot into the Amoonguss, which we used to the Alki, and Spore into the Eviltal. Okay, so now here Solgaleo is in a position where it can actually get an attack off for the first time. Not for the first time. It obviously Dynamax and got some attacks off, but is not in fear of this Yveltal. And also the Scarf Kyogre is in a pretty good position. Solgaleo can also KO the Amoonguss, we know that. And the switch-in would have to be... Well, I guess Station is not the worst switch-in, but obviously that is going down to a Water Spout if it switches in. But also Amoonguss can just protect. It's not in a bad spot to protect either. Yeah, I think Amoonguss is probably just protecting here, right? Like, yeah, just protecting. Really safe play. And Mind Sword coming out, so not just like attacking into Yveltal. Understandable, you are like terrified of this Spore coming out. Spore is a big deterrent to that. But I guess the Station switch in wasn't unreasonable because the Kyogre just switched in. Never mind, whatever. And Yveltal Dynamaxing. So Yveltal, we saw that it did Water Spout did a lot of damage, right? It did like 44 or something like that. So this is like a roll to kill if he didn't Dynamax. 44 to Dynamax Yveltal in game 1, which is what I think I remember seeing. So might have been 54. But yeah, so we see it doing 47 this time. So if he had not Dynamaxed, the Amoonguss, the Yveltal would have gone down. So in this situation, I think you're saying like he's killing the Amoonguss, and my Yveltal is going to survive a turn because it needs to survive a turn. And then if it does, the Elky can come in and do its thing, and I get attacks off, right? And that's fine. But but you actually just get the one-turn wake. So, even better. Get the Airstream off. One-turn wake, really clutch there. Hard to cover for it if you're Sam, but I mean, if you're playing games where you're like, I need them not to wake up on one turn, you're going to win 66% of the time, right? And I think this situation, MiJa had the opportunity to win more than just if he woke up in one turn. I think a 2-turn wake would have also been an okay spot for him. Not a great spot, but this is obviously way, way better for him to get that 1-turn wake. And then so Elky comes in. We see double Max Guard, which is kind of interesting. There, I mean, it's like an awkward spot, right? Elky could reasonably Electroweb and you could Darkness the Kyogre, or you could Electroweb, Darkness the Solgaleo, and then lose your Pokemon to the Kyogre, but then you have an Elky. But okay, so maybe you weren't supposed to Max Guard, right? Like, okay, so let's say you don't Max Guard if you're Sam, right? The Amoonguss switches out, or the Kyogre switches out. Pretty reasonable play. Don't want to take an Electroweb on Kyogre. If the Electroweb into Max Darkness play, which is the big punish, special Max Darkness, KO Solgaleo, and now you have now that's still bad. If you click an attack with Kyogre, you were locked into Water Spout. Never mind. Yeah, no, you had to Max Guard. Okay, fair enough. Yeah. And then I think MiJa's in the driver's seat now that he woke up, so he has a lot of different lines he can take. But Electroweb. Does he KO the... Yeah, no, so he goes into the Incineroar. Just, again, really scared of this Amoonguss. Already broke the Koba Berry, so this would have KO'd the Amoonguss, but of course just barely missing the KO on the Incineroar. And then, let's see. And then doing Psychic Fangs, which is putting the Elky down to Sash, right? That's the best you can do in Psychic Terrain. But, just saying, if you would take the KO on Solg, you take the KO on Solg. But you weren't allowed to do that because you would have got spored, and that would have been really bad. So, cool. So, Incineroar, switching out, just threatening Fake Out, and then popping right back out. As you use Incineroar a lot of times, you just don't necessarily want to click Fake Out. Maybe like a reasonable Parting Shot was a reasonable play, but I think that the Incineroar being at... No, never mind. Parting Shot was not a reasonable play. You were at too low health to do that. I take that back. Station coming in here, and... So we know it doesn't have stop, right? We know it's Behemoth Blade, Sacred Sword, and Quick Attack, Protect, right? So Amoonguss, you kind of have to double tap the Amoonguss to KO it, and now the Incineroar, getting that last Intimidate off is going to be really valuable. And you have to double tap the Amoonguss, I think. This is an awkward spot. So Solgaleo coming out. I don't know if I like that. Amoonguss probably dies to an Oblivion Wing, right? I guess. I mean, the thing is, if Amoonguss doesn't die to an Oblivion Wing, and you get a Spore off onto Zacian or onto Yveltal, you probably win the game. And if you get an attack off into Yveltal with Solgaleo, you also probably win the game. This covers for a Protect, but I believe that we saw the Protect last turn. So it wasn't like he could Protect this turn. So I really would have liked, like, if you think Amoonguss lives in Oblivion Wing, I think you Rage Powder and you just Behemoth Blade, not Behemoth Blade, the Sunsteel Strike, the Evil Tall, and you take the KO. I guess no, that's never mind. I take that back. I forgot that Oblivion Wing heals you. So he just gets the health pack from the Amoonguss and lives the attack, I think. And Amoonguss just protects, but, I mean, sure. Yeah, just call him out on that. Just Oblivion Wing the Incineroar. I don't know. You could have reasonably, like, Sacred Sworded that slot, right? Is there value in Zacian being the one that attacks the Amoonguss? I thought Oblivion Wing into Amoonguss was just always the play because you always get that. You need the health boost. You really need the health boost, right? Now we see Kyogre, so now Yveltal, of course, outspeeding Kyogre. It is Scarf Kyogre. Zacian has to protect here, so otherwise it might not die to an Origin Pulse. Maybe you just tank the Origin Pulse. I guess you probably just tank the Origin Pulse. We're going to see if Oblivion Wing KOs the Amoonguss. That's going to be, like, I think, the deciding factor here. Okay, so it did. So I really do think Sam had safer plays then. Because now, I guess, obviously 2 attacks going into the Amoonguss. The health pack coming out, meaning that you live 2 attacks. And, yeah, and now it's pretty much academic, right? You just Oblivion Wing, Sacred Sword, and then the Evil Tall deals with the Solgaleo. But you have to Evil Tall into the Kyogre because the Scarf Kyogre. Yeah, so Oblivion Wing picking up. Solgaleo really has to just hope that the Zacian can't 2-shot it, which it always does. Honestly, I said it always does. That was remarkably close to not always 2-shotting. But, yeah, Sam making the right play there, but, playing to his outs, and Sacred Sword does, in fact, 2-shot at neutral. And, yeah, so really good games. I think there were, like, a couple plays where the players got them. I would have made different plays, at least in those situations. I don't want to say they got them wrong because, like, there were a lot of different things that could have happened on those turns. But, yeah, I think Bartos, our manager, said, you should watch this replay. And I agree. This was a really good replay. And, really, really high-quality gameplay. Really showed off what Solgaleo Kyogre can do. And also, I mean, just showed off what this Evil Tall team can also do, playing at the very different, like, mode of the team, where you weren't clicking Screech. You weren't playing into, like, double ground types. You were playing where Elky kind of has to do traditional Elky things. And Amoonguss has to put in a lot more work. So, cool game. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know if you like this style of video. Like I said, I won't be able to do it next week because of Salt Lake City Regionals, but I do have some other content planned for next week anyways. And then after that, hopefully for week 5, we will get this ball rolling again. Yeah, make sure to like, comment, subscribe. If you want to support the channel, you can become a channel member as well. And let me know what you think. And until next time, I will see you all later.